Hey everybody, so this is Matt Bergman here, and I want to share with you how you could create your very own HyperDoc. And I'm going to use this sample that we have in front of us, and it's a HyperDoc about HyperDocs. Okay, so first of all, the first step would be, where can you get a template that you could use to make your own HyperDoc? Really great resource is the hyperdocs.co website. I love this website. And in fact, if you go right here where it says find, you can go to templates. So there's a variety of different templates that are out there that you can use to create your own HyperDoc. Now, what a HyperDoc is, just remember, you can use a Google Doc, you can use a Microsoft Word document, a PowerPoint slide, Google Slides, even Apple products to do this. It's a pedagogical approach to creating a lesson that your students can interact with, and it's student-centered, collaborative, creative, and encourages critical thinking. So here's a basic template right here that you can see. And this is amazing because many of the structural pieces are already done for you. This is actually something that uses the engage, explore, explain, apply, share, and reflect model, which I'm going to be sharing with you here in just a moment. Now, with this template, if you want to make your own copy of this template, you just simply go up to File, and then you make a copy. This is a very good model because you'll notice that HyperDocs generally begin with some type of engaging activity, and then they also encourage some reflection at the very end of the activity. So that's one. Now, if you're just getting started, a model that you may want to try out is the explain, explore, apply model, or I'm sorry, explore, explain, apply. That's another really good one. You also have the 5 E's and the workshop model and the hero's journey. So check that out. If you want to see some sample examples, you can go over here. So let's say, for instance, right here, I'm going to do a basic HyperDoc lesson, and I go in and I actually go and I make a copy. So I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of this, and I'm going to actually put this in my Google Drive. So I'm going to put it right here in my Google Drive. It will make it a copy for me, as you can see. And just close out of some of these tabs here. All right, so it has made a copy. Now what I can start doing is I can start adding things in here, such as a title. So if I wanted to add a title, and if I wanted to call it HyperDoc, okay, I could even delete this section right here, and then I can start adding things. So for the engagement part here, what I might want to do is find an activity that's engaging for my students to go through and to complete. One of the things that I like to do is I always like to use Google Forms or some type of quiz for my students to be able to participate in. And I generally give some type of an objective and also instructions. So in this example right here, that's what I did. I actually went through, and you can see that I'm using that same model, but I just created an actual chart right here. And you'll notice that I have task number 1, and they're going to tell us what they're familiar with in this Google form. So when they go to this Google form, they're going to just tell us how familiar they are with the whole idea of HyperDocs, okay? And then I also have right here, I have task number 2, test your HyperDoc knowledge with this self-paced quiz on Quizzes. Now, how I might use this in a classroom is I might have students go through, and maybe we do this as an activity where we're all working together, and I'll have my students go through and actually complete this for maybe the first 5 or so minutes of class, and then talk about it afterwards. That's one way I could do this. Another way I could do it is I could actually have my students complete this whole entire HyperDoc, which is perfect for remote learning. I could have them do that, and then we talk about it. If you're in a remote learning situation, what you may want to consider doing is having students do maybe a section or 2 ahead of time, and then using that as a discussion tool for when you get together in Zoom, or when you get together and maybe use Google Meet of some sort. So right here, this is an engaging activity to start off. All right. So you'll also notice that I put down the task. So I usually label the task and I usually have supporting resources. You'll notice that any link that I have for students is usually much larger than the font size I use to add instructions. And that's on purpose so that you can have things stand out. I also use the highlighter tool. So I go right up here and I use the highlighter tool to highlight links. Something else that may be helpful to make things stand out is using an emoji. So I have right up here an Emoji Keyboard. This is something that you can download on Chrome, and it's by Joy Pixels. And what I like to do sometimes is I like to have maybe a picture of a computer or something like that to put in front of like some type of instruction, maybe increase the font size a little bit right here, just to make things stand out. So a lot of times those things are very helpful. So we get students engaged, and then the next thing is they were going to go through and they're going to learn about the idea of what a HyperDoc is. Now I have some resources right here over on the side that they're going to explore, and they have two tasks. So the very first task right here is they're going to classify the characteristics of HyperDocs. Now check this out. I'm going to open this up and it forces you to make a copy. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do that here in just a second. The idea of this particular activity is taking Google Slides and allowing students to drag characteristics of HyperDocs and non-characteristic of HyperDocs to the side. So you could do this particular activity here in a Google Slides, even Google Drawings. What I did is I just drew a box right here and just started typing. Okay, so let's say that I want to add this to my HyperDoc. I want to add this in so that it forces students to make a copy, especially this is good for workflow, if you have templates, things like that. So I can go right up here to the top right-hand corner where it says share. And I'm going to change this so that it's not restricted, so that anyone with the link can either view or edit. It really doesn't matter at this point, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit copy. And once I do that, I'm going to go into my HyperDoc. Okay, so this is it right here. And for this example, I'm just going to show you how I would highlight the text. And then obviously you'd go to insert and then you'd insert a link, right? So when you do that, you're going to notice that I would paste my link in here. But if I paste the link as is, what's going to happen is that's going to actually just be a view-only copy for my students. So what I need to do is I'll show you right here, at the very, very, very end, okay, of my URL right here, I'm going to delete up to the word edit and I'm going to type in the word copy. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow me to force a copy for students. So this is perfect for individual activities that you want students to complete. And you'll notice from a workflow standpoint, how are we collecting students' works? How are we keeping them accountable? So look at this. We're collecting things in a Google form, and as you collect things in a Google form, that's going to collect all the results. So I'll show you right here, this activity. And if we're discussing this, I can just simply, as a teacher, edit this form, and I can see all my responses here, and I can see, oh, okay, we're not very familiar with this. Then I go right here and I have them do a quiz. I can actually record their responses through quizzes. Then what we do is we do this characteristics of HyperDocs. Now, this will save on their Google Drive. So if you wanted them to turn this into you, great way to do that would be using your learning management system or having them share that document with you. Now, what I did here is I actually had them respond. So they've gone through, they've learned a little bit about the characteristics of HyperDocs. Now they're going to reflect. Reflection is an important component of a HyperDoc because at checkpoints, there are checkpoints or exits along the way where you're going to make sure that you're reflecting on something. So that helps solidify that meaning and that learning for you so that you're ready to go to the next step. All right, so then we get to the apply part. Okay, so we've gone through, we've learned a little bit about HyperDocs. Now we're going to have them reflect again on where they might want to use this model because they're going to be looking at HyperDoc templates and models of HyperDoc templates. And they're going to reflect on which model they most prefer. All right, so then this last part is we're going to actually have them take from their research where they've looked at templates, they've looked at HyperDoc models, and they've looked at sample HyperDocs right here. And they're going to have the option either explore one or two more samples if they'd like, or create their very own. Now, how do you make sure that you keep students accountable on here? In this particular professional development HyperDoc, what I have here is I have a link to a Google Sheet. And so what's going to happen is on this Google Sheet, they're going to put in their information and then they're going to share that link. So that's one way. Google Sheets are a great way to do that. Another way that you could do that too is have them turn it in via Google Form. You could use Google Classroom. And there's a variety of different ways that you want to do it. But you want to make sure that you're holding students accountable, and you also have an area where you can collect everything and it's easy for you. And then last but not least, I have the final part, which is a reflection. And as you can see, I added a flip grid right here. And that flip grid is going to allow students to record a video response on how they plan to use HyperDocs in their classrooms. So this is just an example of a HyperDoc that I created. Once again, it's not an app. It's a specific pedagogical approach that we use to help design a very structured lesson plan. And we can use that lesson plan then in order to teach students through direct instruction, either by breaking it into chunks, having them do it ahead of time, and then coming to class ready to talk about the whole entire thing. Some people I've seen do this over time, over the course of a unit. So it's really up to you on how you want this to work. But HyperDocs might be a great solution, especially in hybrid and even face-to-face environments where maybe you have some students at home, maybe students are in your classroom, or completely remote environments, because they're student-centered, they're structured, and they provide scaffolds and supports that students need to learn.